I work at Colibrio. We build fundamental technologies for so you guys can build reading systems that are accessible. I look like this, meaning that I am a middle-aged, kind of thin-faced man with curly hair. And I tried describing this photo, giving it an alt text, and I realized that I look like a hipster. So yes, but I'm at Colibrio. I'm the product manager. I'm the product developer. I'm also calling myself the CEO, meaning that I'm the chief experimentation officer. I don't want the other CEO title. Thank you very much. I have ADD, and I have dyslexia within my family. I also have sight impairment within my family. So this is kind of something that I bear with me all the time, with everything I do, of course. Again, Colibrio Software is a company that started building accessible reading technologies in 2017, and we are real standards nerds. We work specifically with the EPUB 3 standard, and also we are the reference implementation for the audiobook specification. We see ourselves as trying to be reference implementations also for the EPUB spec, so that you guys have something to properly test your books with that represents what's actually, the features that are actually present in the standards. So that's what we do. I had originally planned to name this talk Accessible Reading Systems, but then I was advised to maybe have a snappier title. So it became Creating Inclusive Reading Experiences instead. And that's much better because I think that from my point of view as a product developer, and also this ties into what Maya said before, I think that as product developers, we want our products to be experienced and loved by as many people as possible. And I also absolutely love the, being the father of a dyslexic daughter, I absolutely love the idea of inclusivity instead of accessibility, in the meaning that I know how affected you are, especially at a young age, when you need special tools to read the same books as your friends do, which kind of means that you get separated out at an early age and you feel special, but not in the good way. So yeah, I actually have a couple of slides at the end of this talk, which give you some ideas maybe on how to even give also ties back to your stuff, Maya, where I show strategies to have complex layout books that actually work for a broader audience, so to speak. So all aboard. Also ties back to what you said, Maya. It's super important within the development phase of an e-reader, which is what's supposed to help not only, I'm just pointing at you, Maya, all the time, sorry, but that will give you as publishers, especially if you want to be creative and so on. The idea that everybody in the organization needs to understand accessibility, in some ways from a technical point of view, but also very much from an emotional and empathic point of view, so that because developing inclusive experiences, whether it's the book production or the reading system, it's going to be the project is going to be bigger. Right? It's going to take more time. It's going to need more aspects from more people. You will need more inputs, and you will need to do more research development. And this will put strain on the entire organization, from the management, product management, developers. So it's important that that everybody, including the people who are in finance, actually feel, the need to implement the inclusivity aspect, because otherwise it will be you will have strain within the project and people will start to feel sad. So make sure that everybody has a possibility to a potential to actually complete the project and still be happy people afterwards. And this is kind of why it's a bit hard to make an accessible reading system, because as product, if we made a normal product, so to speak, I will also, sorry, there's no alt text here. So what you have here on the screen are two staples, basically. Is that the word? Or it's two stacks of blocks, where the one of the blocks is the experience that the expectation we have of building an application. And it's usually kind of, you have square blocks that stack, in a stable fashion on top of each other, with not that much risk of falling over. Whereas the experience when you start implementing, especially accessibility for sight-impaired users, it's the experience stack is very, like you have a sphere, and stacked upon the sphere we have an upside down triangle which tries to balance a rhombus on top of it. And then, yeah, it's not an easy thing to develop a fully accessible and inclusive reading system. So this one, again, everybody needs to be on board. I just flipped back to the previous slide with the title All Aboard, because it's going to be really important for you to actually have the stamina to complete the project. And also choose technology that works. When the engineers say, "Oh, we have these new UI toolkits and we have these new technologies from this and that company," no, this is not the time to try and play around with those things. You want to go with the, as close to the metal as possible, because otherwise you will have, in some cases, actually insurmountable problems further on. Also, join the club. Again, seems like I'm having the same slideshow as Maya. Get into the loop early in the product development phase. It's going to, especially if you're on the front end part of the implementation of the reading system, speak to Daisy, speak to Richard, speak to the W3C reading system group. The Daisy also has a reading system group that you can hang out with and speak about tricky subjects with. And you have Lia, Gregorio, and Christina. Speak to them. You're not alone. All the people in this room will need to adapt to the new regulations. And also, I would say, along with the changes that you make to your reading system technologies, you will have the option to actually provide new product categories that you haven't had before. And I will show you what I mean a bit later. You can also continuously test your reading system tech against the DAISY EPUB tests, and also the W3C's brand new reading system test suite. These are good baseline tests to make sure that you build something that has the baseline features for accessibility and inclusion. Yes. Again, as I said before, an inclusive reading system experience preserves and builds self-esteem. Everybody should be able to read the same book in the same app. That's not to say that you shouldn't be able to adjust the settings in the app in order to make it easier for you to read, but you shouldn't need to switch over to a specific reading system reading experience. That's exclusive and not in a good way. So yeah. Yes, the reading system, the reading experience is up to us as tech providers, up to you as implementers of tech. It's up to the publishers that need to make sure that the books are as structurally sane and has the correct set of metadata added to them as possible. It's not up to the reader. We are supposed to help the reader, to be able to keep up in class, to be able to read the same books that their friends do, even to maybe listen to the comic books that their friends read, in order for them to feel like glued together with the rest of the culture that they hopefully feel that they are a part of. Which means that we need to take care of, and here's where inclusivity also is maybe a better word than accessibility, because we need to make sure that we provide reading aids and assist the reader even in situations where they have different kinds of strains, maybe than permanent disabilities, let's say like a hearing impairment or a sight impairment. They can just be really, really stressed out, or they can have other kind of like temporary ailments that they go through, or have a situation where they need empathy from us as product developers and implementers of reading experiences. Yes, and again, inclusivity, awesome, right? So, and if you just make sure, and this actually is a good thing, if your reading system can be used with your eyes closed, it's a really good start for you, because then you actually know that you have described your user interface in a way that is expressive enough. And that doesn't mean, and this is even if you haven't made a specific, you haven't targeted, let's say, a blind user base, let's say. It's still a good baseline. If you can use the reading experience with your eyes closed with a screen reader, you have surfaced enough data basically in your UI to make it inclusive. This makes total sense, of course. A reader should at least be able to read the contents of the book with as little effort as possible, navigate with as little effort as possible to locations within the book. I mean, this seems like a totally reasonable thing to maybe expect from a reading system. But if you're a sight-impaired user using a screen reader, this is not something that is, something that you can expect, actually, weirdly enough. Find their way back to a previous visited location in the book seems also kind of reasonable, right? Being able to reference a specific portion of the book to other readers. This is actually very specifically something that is not for any reader out there today a simple thing to do, because of how we're missing page numbers in 99% of reflowable ebooks. But I'm going to show you how to solve that. And also being able to search for contents within a book, I think, is a good starting point. So I've made taken some examples from the reading system that I use as an experimental platform, which I call the Vanilla Reader, because it uses only the basic HTML features like buttons and whatnot, no fancy UI frameworks. So what you have on the left here, on the right side, besides the bullet points, is a video that I'm going to start soon. It shows the accessible EPUB 3 book that the kind people at O'Reilly have let me use for this purpose. And what I'm going to show you is focusing on a specific position within a book, which again seems like the most reasonable thing in the world to expect from a reading system. But it's trickier than you may think.
Vanilla Reader Personal Microsoft Edge window. Vanilla Reader document. Graphic first edition. Heading level 2 bookmarks. List with 1 items. The digital famine not a pleasant thought, and it's a graphic first edition. Frame not a pleasant thought, and it's a reality that many people are forced to live right now. It's only imaginary if you're fortunate not to be affected.
In most cases, what you saw here was NVDA, the screen reader, going from a list of bookmarks to the specific bookmark location. I would say that in 90% of the e-readers you will test, this doesn't work. So this is something that is not easy to do, but you must do it, because why? In most reading systems, you will just start at the beginning of the chapter, which means absolutely nothing for a sight-impaired user. This just needs to work.
Vanilla Reader Personal.
Another thing that is super important, not only, and this is why I'm saying that it's, if you can use the reading system without opening your eyes, you have surfaced the right amount of data to be helpful to everybody. This is a good example of that. I call this slide location, location, location. Because you need to understand the structure of your book in order to be able to help your reader understand where they are in the book at any given time. You need to give them at least the chapter, the closest heading that they have, previous heading, and also the progress within the book, and maybe even the page number if there's such a thing available to the user in the book. So again, I have a video on the right side here, which is again going to show you NVDA and me pressing the keyboard shortcut to open up the "Where am I?" information dialog.
It's also worth briefly noting that the group element should probably only be used judiciously if alert, you are at 24% inaccessible EPUB 3 sections and headings closest previous heading note in location 21.
Do you think it speaks too fast? Yes. This is slow from a sight-impaired user's point of view. So sorry, I should have sped it down for us, because we don't have the same super senses. So this is also something that you need to put in your book, because otherwise it's just going to be, especially because since it's very easy to end up in the wrong part of the book in many cases, because again, remember the stack of shapes. Even though we try to do our best, right? All of us here, when we implement our systems, the accessibility technology will get things wrong sometimes. Yes. Page numbers. I mean, this was so important. Everybody, especially in a school setting, need page numbers in order to be able to reference parts of a book. There are almost no EPUBs with page lists at this point. So there is a working group, not the working group, but a task force. Thank you very much. Gregorio to the rescue. That is working on what's called virtual locators, which is basically where you use X number of characters to define a range which is equal to what we would think of as a page. Which means that we have something we can send to anybody, anywhere, because we fall back on the Unicode specification basically for saying what a character is, or a glyph, basically. Page numbers. Please, please, please don't tell your EPUB providers to have fixed page numbers. I curse Apple Books for having page numbers because everybody thinks that Apple Books have the best implementation of this. It sucks hard because they lie to you. There is no page number in a reflowable book. It's a pacifier for the reader just to see a page number at the bottom of the page. It doesn't exist. As soon as you flip the tablet over or get home to your other iPad mini or whatnot, it's a different page number. it lies to you. So, so please don't ask people to add this to their reading systems, because you're going to get sad teachers and even more frustrated parents and kids. So page numbers should be based on some sort of deterministic thing, like virtual locators, for example.
XHTML content documents. For compatibility.
Sorry, I should tell you that I'm now going to start a video that will show you me using the go-to location feature, which uses virtual page numbers, or synthetic page numbers, as I call them, or just locations in the book, to jump to one of these specific positions.
XHTML content documents. For compatibility purposes, however, you should also demo.colabrio.com says dialog go to page input the page number to go to 1 5. OK button 1 vanilla out of frame button previous.
Yes, and there I ended up at the correct place, I promise you. It's a bit hard to see. Should have scaled up the font. Yes, you should also always tell the user what the application is doing. Again, this is most helpful for, again, for sight-impaired users maybe, but to be honest, if you know what's going on when certain events have triggered or are ongoing or whatnot, if you have that information in the UI, you have a better architecture. So it's, again, if you have this at hand, this information, you built your reading system correctly. If you're lacking that sort of information in the user interface layer, even though you don't display it even, you're lacking fidelity, which is going to punish you in the end. I don't even need to show this video. It just basically, oh yeah, wait a minute, I do actually. Because this video is actually going to show a very important thing, which is that I inform the sight-impaired user. I'm going to, again, take that as an example, that there is a highlight on the page.
Don't worry that this requirement means all the potential scripting fun is being taken out of ebook. Vanilla Reader. Visible content has highlights. Press Alt plus Shift plus H to list them. A little help. Dialog. Highlights and view close dialog button.
Yeah, abrupt ending. But what I did here was that I told the user that there are highlights in the view. And I also gave them the keyboard shortcut to open the dialog, which makes it possible for them to access and edit or remove or whatnot the highlights. Speech synthesis. I know that some publishers are not too happy with a requirement that means that they need to add this to the reading system. Because as you heard in the previous slide, the Microsoft voices especially are really freaking good. They are not good enough to pass for, dramatic voices, perhaps, but they are really good for factual text, so to speak. But this is so important for me as an ADD person, for any dyslexic person, for any older person that struggles with also maybe keeping focus and so on. This is just baseline accessibility. Everybody needs text-to-speech in their application. I think we can skip this one, actually. This is an experiment that I've been trying out, which I think I like it. And the people that the title, I'm bad at this. The title of this slide is Guiding the Eye. And what I'm showing to the right is a video of a reading ruler, which is basically a colored overlay which helps the eye, guides the eye to a specific portion of the screen or of the text on the page. This has turned out to be a quite popular thing. I'm going to show you now how it works. There are two different versions of this that I'm going to show you. The first thing is where the colored overlay just guides the eye to the correct position on the page. But this second thing is that I also turn on, later in the video, a feature that obscures the rest of the page so that you have even more specific ability to focus on just the text that you're supposed to read. So now you're seeing the reading ruler move downwards. This also works with text-to-speech, I should say. So you can have this and text-to-speech open at the same time, and text-to-speech will move the ruler. And now I'm obscuring the content on the page so that you have an easier time reading. Room for growth. You should not only be able to scale the text of the book. This is very basic reading system 101 feature. The entire reading system interface needs to be scalable. Here again, please use normal UI elements that are platform close to the metal, because it will just work. You'll go into the OS settings for accessibility and just say zoom everything to 200%, and it will just work. If you start playing around with your own widgets and whatnot, it's just going to give you. It's going to take time and effort that you don't have, basically. In the video on the right, you have the entire reading system scaled up, I think 400% or something. So it actually takes up the entire screen now. The font size is, I don't remember, but it's really large. I think, again, it's 400%. And it's usable. Everything, if it doesn't fit on screen, you can scroll it. Everything is still screen reader accessible. Yeah. So, fun times ahead. How much time do I have?
Well, if you are ready, we can dive into questions that
Can I just show this?
Yes, you can for like 1 minute.
Okay, thank you. So I made, because fixed layout is going to be around, right? So the first thing I have here is a video of a narrated comic book, which I think is super awesome. I've been working on this project for a long time, where I've added contextual zooming and narration.
The sky above the tropical island is a clear blue. The only clouds threatening the sun are formed from the column of black smoke rising from a great volcano that makes up a large part of the island. A quaint two-masted wooden ship has landed at the colorful harbor town that sprawls along the island coast. Among the disembarking passengers, just ahead of a rhino sailor, is a young girl with a hair color of rich chocolate. Across the shoulder of her red dress, a straw basket is slung. It's Pepper, the young witch. Phew, it's good to be here.
So this was one page narrated and with what's called region-based navigation, which is an EPUB recommendation, or used to be at least. What I added to the source was just the narration. It's one of my proposals for comic books for everybody. It's inclusive comic book. The second is a book from Macmillan, produced with Ken Jones' fantastic circular flow software for InDesign, where I make this accessible to low vision readers by using the same trick as before, where I have this region-based navigation. And you can also pair this up, of course, with media overlay, so you have narration or text-to-speech. But this makes it possible for even sight-impaired users to read this book in a way that is actually sort of designed by the author and the book designer, because this is metadata that is baked into a specific navigation file within the EPUB.
On Monday, she made him some pasta with cheese.
And this is, again, you have a media overlay powered fixed layout book. Usually really hard it wouldn't be considered really accessible, even though it has media overlays, because it's impossible to scale up the font and so on. So this is an experiment where I added a normal caption, which you would expect from maybe Netflix or whatnot. And this is, of course, already scalable, so to speak. So you can actually add an accessible possibility, so to speak, to read using, again, also a font that is readable, to be honest. Okay, I finished. Thank you very much.
Great. Fantastic. Excellent. Thank you so much. There are a few questions for you. What's your insight? Will the most popular reading systems be up to the task in meeting the new requirements in 2025? And if not, what do you think will be the most common shortcomings?
Yeah, that's. I think many of the reading systems out there that I've tried, the biggest problem that they have is again screen reader accessibility. So if you're a blind user, almost all of them will fail, and that I can go into the more technical details if anybody's interested at some other point. But it's hard to make an accessible reading system, a native accessible reading system. Otherwise, it's just that many of them rely on like legacy technologies that don't support media overlays, for example, maybe don't support text-to-speech. So yeah, it's going to be, I've said this for a couple of years now, it's going to be a consultant-friendly time. So if you're a consultant working with this kind of stuff, good for you guys.
Perhaps one last question before we go on a break again. For educational purposes, we find that it is very important that the reader supports fill in the blank types of exercises and the reuse thereof. Any thoughts on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. We have a lot of customers that are in the educational space. So what I would say, because if you have books where you need to fill in exercises on the page, this is usually to be thought of as metadata, which is specific to a book plus a reader, right? And you want to store it in an LMS in 90% of the cases, which means that it would be smarter to have this be using what's called web annotations or some other annotation standard, your own maybe. It doesn't need to be interoperable. But think of it as an annotation on top of the page so that it can be specific again to a user, and you have like a normalized way of flowing into another system, basically. I can also, if anybody's interested in how you would do this, not specific to Colibri Unini, if you're interested, you can just talk to me.
Wonderful, and that is what we will do now that it's break time, and perhaps also in the chat, and maybe you can answer questions there. Thank you so much.
Oh,
Be
you're
back
welcome.
in 15 minutes.